So, what's up, Unheard Gems? Today I am joined with EZA, and welcome to our show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing really well. Thanks.
So, first off, when did you first know you wanted to be a musician, and how does that translate into what you're working on now? Like, how does your sort of musician origin story play into who you are?
Man, it's my origin story. I have been singing as long since before I can remember. Honestly, there's like home videos of me singing all the time. That memories I couldn't retain because I was too little. But it was always very evident, and I think to my parents, that I loved performing. I loved singing, and so they put my sisters and me in like musical theater, and I think I only loved doing it so much because I got to sing on stage, and I didn't care what songs they were. I didn't care what I was singing about. I just loved singing, and I think that was really good for me at that age because it taught me how to listen to what I should sound like in order to replicate it as best as possible on stage. So it trained my ear at a really young age, and the more I listened to music when I was young, I almost was obsessed with replicating what I was hearing. And I think there's some kind of like, as much as it is like an art form, for some reason my brain always wanted to take like the learning aspect of singing at that age, because I was just fascinated with how are they making that sound? How are they doing that? Where is their resonance? Like, all of the nerdy vocalist stuff I was super into. And so I, moving forward, went into voice lessons at 12, which I carried through until college and after. And I don't think I started writing until I didn't really start writing until I was in college, but I dabbled a little bit in high school. It wasn't until I was listening to really good music did I want to make my own. I think I was listening to decent music that was just on the radio, top 40 stuff, but when I really started listening to like Regina Spektor and Fiona Apple or Imogen Heap or Kimbra, all of those really interesting writers, I remember thinking like, they are saying something so interesting and they're really contributing to the world by what they have to say. And people like myself, especially, like if I was going through a breakup or something, like they had things to say that got me through those moments or those seasons. And I just remember thinking like, I do feel like I have something to say, and I would love to make music the platform that I get to do that. So college is when I really like tried to hone in on what my sound was, what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. I think I went through a lot of different phases, and finally I heard like Banks and Broods and Lord kind of all around the same time, and I was like, that is it. Kimbra was I was definitely getting into Kimbra a lot, but once I found like the indie electronic scene, I was like, this is where I really feel like I belong. It was easy. I didn't even think about it. So I made my first EP while I was still in college, and a lot of that was how do I say this? It was the best I could do then. Looking back, I'm like, ooh, I wouldn't have, said it that way, or I would have, gotten it mixed better or mastered. I mean, it was mastered fine, but like, there are just so many aspects to that EP that I learned a lot about music and myself. And I'm just trying to take every song I write and every person I write with as just an opportunity to learn more about myself, about what I want to say, about how to say it. Everything's just like, I want to learn as much as I can and craft it.
Yeah, definitely. And do you think that has changed like the way you've approached like your music stylistically as like you've evolved as a musician?
Definitely. I even remember when like the indie electronic thing was pretty new, or especially Lord was like creating some new sounds and Broods, and when I got into that, it was new to me, and so that's why I was so excited. And then it kind of turned into like everyone was doing this sound, And I think once everyone was doing it, I was like, it's lost its magic. It's lost its mystery or something, because everyone's making this sound and it doesn't sound unique anymore. And so I thought, how do I still make a sound that I love, but sounds more like me, because I don't want to just keep adding to the noise. There's just so much music out there these days, and a lot of it's great. It's brilliant music. It's just I want there to be something that I feel like I can claim as my own, and so yeah.
So, like, where do you draw inspiration from when you're writing your music? What's that songwriting process like for you?
It's always so personal. Even if it's not a direct, like, word for word what I went through, it's always inspired by something I went through, or something I'm going through, something I'm feeling. It's very therapeutic for me to write about. So that's why I don't really write for other people. I'm not against it, I guess. It's just I just don't feel like I would have as much to say, because I can't help but write about my own experiences. And yeah, it's almost like I love writing, but I love it because it's therapeutic, not because it's just fun. Like, it is fun, but it feels so good to get it out. Yeah, it's just, that's where I have to, yeah, I mean, and so there are times when you're, like, not going through a lot in life, so you have to think about maybe past experiences, or figure out a way to angle a song about, like, that you're not, how do you write a song about, like, my life is pretty uneventful right now, like, how do you write a song in those seasons? But especially when I'm going through a season of heartbreak, or a season of, like, incredible, like, love, yeah, there's so much to say,
So I read that you have, like, synesthesia, and so that allows you to see music in colors. So does that impact your songwriting at all? Like, what's that like? 'Cause that's really different.
Totally. What's funny is I've heard that a lot of artists have synesthesia, either in music or in visual art or whatever. I didn't know I had it until I was in high school. I just didn't know it was a thing. I mean, I think that's true of most people who have it. Like, they didn't realize that that's not the way that most people see life. Is like, I see the alphabet, and I see months through the year, and every month has its color, and every person has an aura, and every song I hear is very visual. I just had no idea that that wasn't normal until I heard that it wasn't, and I was like, oh, what? Like, so I was, the first thing I did was I wanted to write down everything that I saw, knowing that, like, this was a language that I maybe could show people, like, hey, like, I don't know, like, January's purple, like, isn't that cool? And they're like, I don't get it, like, why? But yeah, it was just, as far as music goes, it just helps me figure out what I think is interesting versus a little dull. If I can see something that visually is attractive to me, I'm more interested in following those ideas, or it's almost like, I don't know, it's like tasting food. It's, for some reason, like, you have a palate for certain types of food or flavors. Like, I have a palate, like a mental palate, for different shapes and particular colors, which I hope doesn't make all my music sound the same, but I think it does make it sound cohesive, at least a little bit. Like, you can tell, like, I have similar melodies or similar ways I like to phrase things, or rhythms. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. I never thought about it, but yeah.
So, sort of going on a different track now, what has been the craziest experience you've had as a musician?
I mean, I got to play Nashville's Pridefest last year, and I remember thinking, like, this is such an awesome opportunity. The stage was huge. I felt like it was for such a great cause, too. I felt like I was really doing something that mattered, and being given the opportunity. I mean, I just got a call. Like, I didn't reach out to them to do it. Like, I just got a call to do it, and I was so flattered that, especially that, like, my music sounds open enough that they would want to call me, and or that there's a demographic that, in the LGBTQ community that, like, likes my music. Like, I love that. So I don't know if that's crazy, but it was definitely one of the coolest. Like, oh, I feel like I'm really doing something, and I want to be an ally. I want to be an advocate for those people I love. Like, some of my absolute closest friends are in that community, and I want to speak up for their rights and speak up for their, situations and things that they're going through. Like, yeah, I guess it's not crazy, but it was cool, I guess. Yeah.
So you already have music out now. Is there anything in the works for the future that listeners can expect to hear, or like approximate dates or information that will get people excited?
Totally. I have been writing like crazy. Yeah, there's stuff I'm working on constantly, and I don't think any of it will see light until spring of next year. And even then, it'll probably be singles. I'm working on a full length, but at this point, I'm just writing as many songs as I can to even sort through for a full length. I want to have more songs than I need, and then cut them down to make a record that feels, or an album rather, that feels like, I don't know, cohesive. It sounds new. It sounds fresh. That's the most important part. So a lot of these songs are very personal, very honest, but I'm trying not to make them depressing. I'm trying to make them fun, even with a sad message, or, make them sad, but make them hopeful. Like trying to combine different emotions so it's not like just sexy or just sad or just fun. Like, I'm trying to combine as many of those ideas as I can so that these songs are just more dimensional. Because that's just where I'm in. Like, that's the season I'm in right now, is feeling a bunch of things at once. And how do you weed through that? And I think it's okay to not have to compartmentalize your feelings. I think oftentimes they're very blurred in one another. They're like, I'm happy, but I'm like, I feel guilty or something. Like, you know what I mean? When you're feeling one thing and all of a sudden you're also feeling another equally. One thing I went through was like heartbreak, but peace. Like, I've never felt those two things in one. And getting to write about that combination of experiences is definitely going to be part of this record. It'll be probably more R&B than electronic, especially like R&B hip hop than electronic. That's definitely a direction I'm moving in, but still sounding like me. That's the most important thing.
So I have two last questions for you, and one of which is, if you were to give advice to someone who is trying to break into the music industry that you wish you would have gotten when you first started, what would you tell them?
That's a great question. I would say take your time and work with a lot of people. I think there is this idea in the industry that like you have to do it alone or something, like, and maybe because if you write all your songs yourself, you can take more ownership and more pride in the fact that you did them all yourself. But so often, like more times than not, the best songs were written by like 5 people, you know what I mean? And maybe they all took a portion of this. A lot of those people were in the production side of things rather than the lyrics. But like, I'm learning more and more that there is so much power in finding like the right, and that's part of it too, is like finding the right people to work with. Don't just like work with 10 unfit people to work together, and try and write a song. Like, you all have to have the same vision and the same, the same taste, I guess, for the most part. But once you've found those people that you want to work with, like, don't be afraid to work with several people, several producers. And yeah, take your time, because, if you're in a rush to release something, it's not going to sound as good. People will tell that you rushed, and you may end up looking back and regretting releasing something that has your name on it forever. You can always take it down, I guess. But people will hear stuff that you've done, and maybe they have that impression of you for the next 4 albums you make. And you've grown so much over the past however many years that you were writing, but if they're remembering that one thing that you did a while ago that wasn't that great, that's always unfortunate.
And finally, if you were to recommend to our listeners one growing or unheard musician that we need to listen to, who would it be?
Oh, there's so many, especially in Nashville. I would say Daniela Mason in Nashville is one of my favorite people, my favorite artists. She's just so wildly talented, and man, her voice live, her voice recorded is honestly unbelievable. So Daniela Mason, definitely check her out. It's very pop, really fun, incredible lyrics. Yeah, she's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being part of this. It was
Of course,
a great experience.
Thank you for having me.